He's sometimes called the inventor of our generation. Salvatore Pais. He's the hyper inventor. He's coming out with some patents that are beyond belief, actually, some of the technologies.
Phenomenal.
And unlike a previous video we did, John St. Clair, which is an inventor that put in a lot of applicants for patents. We don't know who he is. It's a complete mystery. And then he just disappeared, and we don't know. It's a complete mystery. This is different. We know who Salvatore Pais is. Sometimes it's called Pais or something, or Pais or something.
No, I think
I'm going with
Salvatore Pais. It is Pais, but I don't think you pronounce it.
So he's an aerospace engineer and an inventor, and he works for the US Navy. He worked initially for the US Navy Air Station at Patuxent River. He, in 2019, moved over to the US Navy Strategic Systems Program. Not only did he put these patents in, I would argue as well, that they were actually granted. Right, now, to get a granted patent, you have to show that the technology is not just fanciful. You can't just go, yeah, it has to be some background to it. So normally what they would do is the patent office would say, is there a progression to the technology? So I can't come out and go, I've designed a warp core and then just put a patent in for the USS Enterprise. I can't do that because I would have to show, they would say that technology is not real. There's no history to the technology. There's no progression to the technology. So you can't have it, right?
Although you've chosen a bad example because we do actually have engineering designs for a warp drive, don't we?
Yes, the Obiair warp drive. So I have come up with a bad example because now they will patent that. So, okay. Thanks very much. Thanks very much, dickhead. It was made me look like an idiot. So, but initially, that does explain actually why these patents were initially declined. But then the US Navy and the JAG Corps, or whatever they're called, actually appealed and won, and they've been granted and they have gone out and said that they have working prototypes for these technologies, which is interesting. We'll talk about in a minute. So what are the patents? They all build on each other for a start, which is interesting. So he's got oh God, I struggle to say this, piezoelectricity induced room temperature superconductor. Piezoelectricity is it comes from a solid state charge, basically. So the crystal in your watch is a piezoelectricity device.
Yes. So when you shake your wrist, the energy from you shaking your wrist is converted through the piezoelectric crystals that transfer the kinetic energy from the movement in your wrist.
Yeah.
Through
you might want to stop doing that, mate. I'm not going to be able to edit that out. You doing that?
It doesn't matter. Whatever.
It looks so rude. So that patent went in 2017. There wasn't a lot of supporting evidence, but he basically said that he could transmit electricity with zero loss. Now that would be at room temperature. Now we have superconductors, but they tend to have to be very, very, very cold. We want superconductive electricity. If we had a superconductor that worked at room temperature tomorrow, it would change the world.
Yes.
We lose loads of energy transferring electricity from one place to another.
Yes. In terms of energy transfer, we have a very inefficient generally.
Yes. And this is why they generate heat, they generate EM energy. And I saw once, I think it might be a bit out of date, but I saw once that we lose about 70% of the electricity we generate because just through transmission, through conductivity.
Yes.
I'm sure it's better than that nowadays, but that's what it used to be. So if we had that technology tomorrow, that would be a game changer. I mean, we could close 2/3 of our power stations. It was that important sort of thing. And also the what it would do for battery technology, that would, like I said, it would change everything. We'd suddenly have batteries that are actually useful and lightweight potentially. The next one was the electromagnetic field generator, and that was from 2015. The main purpose in the patent was, as he said, that it could deflect asteroids over time. So it's like a tractor beam from Star Trek, actually. So we could use this electromagnetic field generator pointed at asteroids, anything up to about 100 meters or smaller, wide, the size of the asteroid, and divert them from the path, so divert them from hitting the Earth. in later things, he basically uses virtually identical technology as a propulsion system.
Yeah, I was
right?
going to say,
Or
it's got
the
a
core of it.
secondary use as a propulsion system, hasn't it? Yeah.
Yeah, most definitely. And then 2016, we had this inertial mass reduction device. And it is a triangular vehicle that looks an awful lot like the TR-3B, an awful lot like a lot of UFOs that we see. Potentially this this video that's just been released showing a triangular object, a video released by the Navy again. Potentially this is what they're looking at. The interesting thing about this vehicle, though, is it can travel between aerospace and undersea without any change in vector, without any change in inertia, which basically is saying to me that
it's reducing the mass, isn't it? It's reducing the mass,
reducing
its mass. Inertia down to zero. So the theory goes, doesn't it? Basically, in order to create an anti-gravity propulsion system, you need to drive the mass down to virtually zero.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, the other thing is
that to zero, water, and then you'd be able to break the speed of light.
Because then you're getting around the whole E equals mc squared.
What you're doing is you're creating electromagnetic waves that are basically having the same effect that gravity has on space-time, and that it folds and manipulates space-time so that it folds space-time so that you shorten the distance between A and B, so you can instantaneously travel between two places in the. So you're effectively using a propulsion drive to actually warp the fabric of space and time itself.
Well, this thing is what I mean. Water is 380 times more dense than air. So if it can travel between the two, it's either creating some sort of bubble.
Yeah, but if your mass is zero, then density has no relevance.
Yeah, exactly. Or like you said, or you're dropping the mass down to zero. The US military spent quite a lot of money doing tests on this, and they were researching something called the Pay effect from 2016 to 2019 that we know about. They spent nearly £1 million doing some experiments. They never released the results of those experiments.
Oh, that's strange.
So the US military didn't have to release these patents. They're in the public domain. I'm going to be showing images that are the actual patents. Right now, these patents don't have loads and loads of technical information. They're not. You couldn't go and build one of these vehicles from it, but it would give you a hint how it works and the direction to go. If China is trying to develop something like this, or Russia, they're going to look at that and go, that's interesting. We did not think to go that way.
But have maybe America's competitors already caught up with the technology, so they weren't scared about their competitors knowing about the technology, because the American government knows that they know about this technology now. They've been engineering this technology themselves, China, Russia, for many years. America's been doing it since the late 40s. So they've had 70 years now to try and catch up. So maybe they've caught up. So maybe now they've released the patents to patent the tech before another country went and patented the tech in their country. Maybe it was.
So you're saying that the patent has actually genuinely been released and made public because they know everyone else has already got it,
perhaps,
and we need the legal protections in place, sort of thing. Because these patents could have been released and done secretly. The US Navy is one of the largest holders of patents that are closed in the world. They can also make these things secret, and then they have legal protections on many of the technologies as well. So making it public is odd to me.
Yeah, because technology wins a war, so they'd normally compartmentalize it and make sure as few eyes as possible knew about all the secret tech.
My other thinking is it's a misinformation tactic. We're in a technological Cold War, and this is a tactic they like. Confusion is a great weapon. And you could almost go with Salvatore Pais and go, you're doing some great work here, mate, on whatever it is you're actually working on. Do us a favor, throw a couple of patents together. Just let your imagination run riot. We'll back you up and say it's real. All right.
Yeah.
For a very specific reason, and
to fool the enemy.
Salvatore is
got that technology. Yeah.
Yeah, and he's a patriot. He goes along with it basically. I could believe that.
That's also a possibility. Yeah.
He does go into a lot of detail though, because now he's actually started to come out and started doing research papers, which he didn't do before. And he's actually started doing he started appearing on a couple of panels and things. That was the other thing. People believed he wasn't real for ages, that it was a hoax. And then the US Navy went, it's him. And everyone went, oh, technology actually works. So the basis for the technology is the controlled motion of electrically charged matter through accelerated vibration and or accelerated spin subjected smooth yet rapid acceleration, deacceleration, acceleration transients to generate extremely high energy, high intensity electromagnetic fields. That the way I'm picturing that is I remember doing an experiment at school when we were generating electricity, and we had a pipe and it had a magnet in the middle, and you shook the pipe up and down really hard. I'm not going to do that. And it generated a small electrical charge. I'm imagining that, but on like a quantum level. That's how I'm sort of seeing that.
You're almost thinking like a solenoid, and how a solenoid works. And you
Yes.
you get a cold wire, and you get a magnetic effect to like undo a lock based on a solenoid when you press like a button.
Yeah. And that's basically how generators work.
It's similar, but it's probably a bit more complex than that, I imagine, when you're creating high energy EM waves to basically.
I imagine. SSP now in 2018 did announce that they are developing a prompt global strike weapon system, and that's how Salvatore now works for. They're trying to develop a weapon system that can anywhere on the planet within an hour. Are they using this technology?
Do we really need that? You know, we've already got enough nuclear warheads to destroy our species and make the planet uninhabitable.
We now want to do it really
tens of
quickly.
thousands of years. We now need to be able to do it within the hour as well. I'm fed up with the militarization of everything, to be honest. But yeah, I'm not surprised.
But then I do wonder that we see things like the Tic Tac video, right? Which we know is technology that we don't understand. It's a weapon system, or it's a weapon system. Probably will be a weapon system as soon as the Americans grab a hold of it. But it's some sort of vehicle that moves using a propulsion system. We have no clue. I've said many times on this channel before, I look at the Tic Tac and then I look at these patents and I think, we're being set up. If the Tic Tac video was genuinely a UFO, an alien, I fear that these patents have been released and put into the public domain so that in a few years' time they can go, yeah, it was us. It is an American vehicle. It is a thing.
Maybe.
I think so. So it's almost like that. Just you know how they do it with we think they have been putting UFOs and things into the public domain through media, through movies. It's all about making these things normal to us.
Yeah, normalizing them. Yeah, of course.
So we don't freak out. You know. So this Salvatore Pais patents, it feels like a trap to me. It feels like they're setting us up. You know. And then when I think about the Tic Tac videos and things, the chief technology officer for the U.S. Navy contested during the patent appeal that this technology was at a working prototype stage. So that means to me, they're flying these things.
Yeah, correct.
But I would also argue, I believe that we've actually been flying these things for years. Could this technology, could these patents be alien technology? Could it be
alien reproduction vehicles?
Yeah. Could it be inspired by alien technology?
Yes, they're very likely. Given the whole Roswell incident in the 40s, the other incidents that occurred in the late 40s, just after we developed radar, which supposedly affected the navigation systems in these flying saucers and caused a few of them to be downed. Coincidentally, it was also the time that we also created the nuclear bomb and just dropped the first two nuclear warheads on Hiroshima and Nagasaki. So I also think from that point that any aliens observing us would take much more of an interest from that point onwards as well. And we've seen an increase or an influx in sightings from that point on to the present day. So everything just seems to line up quite nicely, doesn't it?
That's why I worry. I do feel like we've talked before about his disclosure coming. I just feel like something's coming. I think it'll be very managed and controlled, and I don't think it'll be disclosure, but they're not
going to give us the full disclosure. You know, they're going to release 10 volumes of everything they've lied about for the last 70 years. They'll just slowly,
exactly.
a little bit and a little bit and a little bit. And it's what they seem to be doing, isn't it? They've drip fed us a few videos, the Tic Tac video and the other 2 videos from the Pentagon. Look, metallic objects flying incredible speeds. We track them with military, jets.
Yeah.
They outmaneuvered us. They're intelligently controlled. We don't know.
Yeah, and we get very reliable sources like Fravor that come out and say, I saw this thing and I know what it was capable of doing. And with the Tic Tac video, Fravor says he saw that object and he went down to it and flew close to it. His wingman was 20,000 feet above him watching it, and it moved so quick they both lost it. They couldn't follow it. And that's not them. That's not Fravor saying, well, I was right behind it and it just outmaneuvered me. That outmaneuvered their ability to keep their eyes on it.
Yes.
Yeah. And from 20,000 feet up. And so it outmaneuvered sort of doing that sort of thing.
At ground level, you can see 80 miles to the horizon, can't you, roughly? Yeah. Right.
Yeah.
So what can you see from 20,000 feet?
Well, that was their point. This is it. It moved so quick that it got past. If it went over the horizon, it may have just gone straight up. It may have just disappeared, but it moved so quick. So, but we're talking about technology here that is messing with magnetic fields and creating a vehicle that can, like we said earlier, the fact that it can travel between air and water means this pay vehicle is capable of doing things that we don't have anything that can even come close to. Mm-hmm. It would be capable of. It could have just nosedived. Could it warp time? That was one of the things Fravor talked about. He said Tic Tac.
Yeah, if your propulsion system is an electromagnetic propulsion system that's using electromagnetic waves of high frequency and intensity to negate the forces of gravity in order to warp space and time, you are, according to Einstein's theory of relativity, space and time are not separate. They are one. They are space time. If you are warping the fabric of space time to break the speed of light, to move between 2 points in the universe quicker than the speed of light, you are warping time.
Yeah. Fravor talked about the Tic Tac going from one side of him and then appeared on the other in a blink of an eye sort of thing. And he actually talked to Bob Lazar about it. And they were talking, Bob Lazar came up with exactly the same point you're talking about. And he said that vehicle didn't disappear and appear. It just appeared to you that it did. One of the things he talked about was like a ping pong ball in a glass and shaking up, and that's how it moved. That's how it looked like it moved, that jerky sort of movement. And he says, yes, the vehicle wasn't doing that, but time is relative, and relative to you, that's what it looked like it appeared to do. But it didn't. Could this technology be doing something similar? Could that be possible?
Time is really a human construct in and of itself. In terms of physics, it's very hard to actually to define time and play around with it. The only reason I suppose that we define it is actually through our own experience in the world. Not of it. It's very, very difficult to. There's still a lot of questions around time from a physics perspective that are unanswered.
To go back to the patents, a guy, Carl Willis, because a lot of physicists have come out now and started to actually try to debunk this particularly this pay effect. It's a plasma compression fusion device in 2018, but that is again using the magnetic technology he was talking about. That was again a progression. So it's one step from the using the superconductors in an electromagnetic field generator in a slightly different way to create a fusion reactor. This guy, Carl Willis, talks about that containing invented jargon, nonsensical statements, weak or absent evidence. There is a lot of people saying that this stuff is made up. It doesn't make sense. I would argue if Einstein went down to a physics teacher in 1940 and started to explain relativity to him, that physics teacher would probably think that Einstein was using made up jargon with weak or absent evidence and nonsensical statements. I would argue personally that this person probably just doesn't understand the technology.
It's also very hard, as we discussed before, to change people's minds when they've been indoctrinated into a certain mindset, a certain way of thinking in childhood. So, for example, Galileo inventing the telescope and showing that the Earth did orbit around the sun. Well, unfortunately, his generation had grown up to think the Earth was the centre of the universe and that the sun went round the Earth. And it wasn't until he was in prison for the last 30 years, wasn't he, of his life as a heretic by the Christian Church. But then the next generation then
understood it, normalised
it and took it on. So perhaps there's a little bit of that going on to some extent.
I would argue that, to be fair. The other thing is we only know what's been released. We don't know what they're not or what hasn't been released. But at the end of the day, Salvatore Pais has come out repeatedly and said that this technology does work. It is working, but he's backed up by the US Navy, and who have publicly and repeatedly come out and said that they're basically corroborating what Pais is saying. It is going to be very difficult for them in a few years to go out and come out and basically go, we were joking. April Fools. Certain people, high up people in the US Navy, have kind of put their necks out and kind of said, this is true. There are certain things that are secret and they don't tell us. They do talk about a scientific level, basically, that would be, you could get to a technological level where anybody could kill us all. Basically, the technology would become so advanced, somebody could use that technology to do something really bad, right? And it almost becomes easy. Also, there are certain technologies that, if they're released tomorrow, would destroy our economy. It would be an economic disaster. We need it to be slow so that we can keep up and adapt. Our economy, our systems need to adapt and get ready for these things. So that some of the technologies we're talking about might not be released because it would destroy our systems and create, at least in the short term, horrendous pain, horrendous problems. In the long term, it would be better for us. But we need to keep up with it. Is my point. Psychologically, people need to keep up with these things. Again, there's another reason why I think some of these technologies aren't released, is because they generally don't want people to freak out and start panicking.
No, they don't. The crime of the last few thousand years is probably religion and the misinterpretation of extraterrestrial visitations that have been classified as gods, and then monotheized through the Abrahamic faith into God, singular. And that's taken us away from perhaps understanding a lot of, and for the same reason that the society won't be able to handle it, because of how, it basically blows all the world religions out the water and just says these were just in misinterpretations of what actually occurred in the past. So what you've been preaching for the last 2,000 years is actually it was just an alien visitation that was misinterpreted.
Yeah, I do think you can argue that religion has not only held us back, it's actually pushed back. How many, like you said, Galileo, how many other scientists over the years, and this has been have been called wrong, been called lies, been called heretics, and the reason for that was God.
Yeah,
and it's physically pushed back.
And in the case of the Catholic Church with the Vatican secret vault, they probably actually know this as well.
So if we think about the technology as well, just really quickly, because I found this guy, John Hutchinson, and the Hutchinson effect on YouTube, and he does loads of videos. Uses EM fields, and he uses like Tesla related technology. So he's got like a Van de Graaff generator, uses Tesla coils, and EHF, extremely high frequency EM generators to levitate metal objects, and sometimes burn massive holes in them and turn large metal objects into dust, basically. So but he says I don't understand science, I'm just playing around with it. But we know Tesla was working on things like this and using electromagnetic fields. And we know that the American government, as soon as Tesla died, went in there and confiscated and secretized all of it.
Yes. And it wasn't like the tower that he built as well for his electric generation was very similar to the construction of the Great Pyramid. When you look that it had underground water channels running, and then you look at the construction of the Great Pyramid, the Queen, the King's Chamber, and you look at the construction of his tower, and you can see that they were trying to perform a similar physical process.
That also talks about piezoelectricity as one of the fundamental ways of generating that energy.
Yes.
I'm wondering if everything we've talked about, the Salvatore Pais thing, is actually just where we are now. Or actually, maybe not even where we are now, where we were a few years ago, and they're just starting to admit it. Maybe because things like the Tic Tac video and stuff, and they are getting ready to sort of, it is a bit of a trap sort of thing. But is this, I'm starting to wonder, is this technology actually as exotic and as advanced as we think, or is it actually just a progression from what Tesla was doing? And potentially what you just said there, the Egyptians were doing. It's just the next bit. It's the next step. It's the next. Is it actually not as exotic and crazy as we think? It's just that we're seeing a bit behind the curtain.
It's exotic and crazy, but that's because the public's behind the curve of the true scientific exploration, isn't it?
Yeah.
That's what I'm trying to say. Yeah. So I think,
maybe these patents are actually them letting us see a bit behind the curtain.
Maybe it's letting the public peek through the curtain. Maybe that's the intention. Maybe a little bit. And the people that have got the scientific understanding to go and like look into it and perhaps check through these patents and see whether they seem to make sense from degree level or PhD level, physicists. That's what I'd really like to see. I'd love to see some kind of world-renowned PhD physicist attack those patents and see whether they can make head or tail of them.
That's the problem, though, I think, with the patents, possibly, is there's not enough information in there for somebody that would really be able to tear them apart to definitively say whether it is or not.
That's what I was saying.
They are limited in the information,
isn't it?
Exactly. Just a peek.
But they probably don't give the full information. They probably don't tell you everything you need to know. They probably miss out some crucial key information so that you couldn't repeat the technology from just the patent, and you needed to have Salvatore Pais' full
actual schematics, designs, research data
before you could do it. And it's just a peek.
Yeah. But it is a peek, and it is fascinating. Please go out there, research, have a look at his patents, connect a few of the dots yourself. We've started to, but we've only really scratched the surface. And thanks very much. We'll see you next time.
Yeah, see you next time.
We didn't do that.